series here with the mental health seminar, and specifically talking about unconditional self-acceptance and self-love. Everybody said there might be a lot of words and it's hard, but after this presentation, hopefully we'll be able to have some better insight of what we need to be able to do to, most importantly, love ourselves as God loves us. So I'm going to ask Pastor here if he can go ahead and give us a blessing, and then we can move forward.
All right, everyone, let's pray. Dear Lord, thank you so much that you have created us with so much love and with so much to appreciate. And Lord, may we see ourselves through your eyes. Bless our brothers to grow and learn through your spirit. Be here, I pray. In Jesus' name. Amen.
All right, like I always like to start off here with my medical disclaimer here that all content in this presentation is for informational purposes only and is not intended to be a substitute for professional medical advice and should not be relied on as health or personal advice. Always seek the guidance of a doctor or other qualified the advice of a medical professional or delay in seeking it because of something that was discussed in this presentation. If you think you may have a medical emergency, call your doctor, go to the nearest hospital, emergency department, call your emergency services immediately. If you choose to rely on any information provided, you do so solely at your own risk.
Yeah, that's it.
Now, I always like surveys, so I'm going to ask you a series of questions, and after you read this, I just want you don't have to say anything, just kind of keep it in your own mind, so you can kind of realize what you might think about this question being asked. First question goes as such: when someone compliments me for something, I care more about how it makes me feel about myself than about what it tells me about my strengths and abilities. I feel worthwhile, even if I am not successful in meeting certain goals that are important to me. Question 3. When I receive negative feedback, I take it as an opportunity to improve my behavior or performance. Question 4. I feel that some people have more value than others. Question 5. Making a big mistake may be disappointing, but it doesn't change how I feel about myself overall. Question 6. Sometimes I feel myself thinking about whether I am a good or bad person. Question 7. I feel like a worthwhile person. I must be loved by the people who are important to me. Question 8. When I am deciding on goals for myself, trying to gain happiness is more important than trying to prove myself. Question 9. I think that being good at many things makes someone a good person overall. Question 10. My sense of self-worth depends a lot on how I compare with other people. Question 11. I believe that I am worthwhile simply because I am a human being. Question 12. When I receive negative feedback, I often find it hard to be open to what the person is saying about me. Question 13. I set goals for myself that I hope will improve my work. Question 14. Being bad at certain things makes me value myself less. Question 15. I think that people who are successful in what they do are especially worthwhile people. Question 16. To me, praise is more important for pointing out to me what I'm good at than for making me feel valuable as a person. Question 17. I feel I am a valuable person even when other people disapprove. Question 18. I avoid comparing myself to others besides that I am a worthwhile person. Question 19. I am criticized, or when I fail at something, I feel worse about myself as a person. And last question, question 20. I don't think it's a good idea to judge my worth as a person. Now, let's look at the guidelines that goes into what is unconditional acceptance and love. Now, to accept and love yourself unconditionally is to place no conditions on yourself as to how you behave or what to be in order to receive self-acceptance and self-love. Now, let's spend a little extra time on the second one here, because I want us to really understand this more here. Not to use if-then clauses to establish conditions for accepting and loving yourself. In other words, not allowing people to love you for what you can do for them or they can do for you. A lot of times, if you do this, then I really like you or I really care about you. Or because you didn't do this, I don't have a love. So, next one is take a risk to become open and vulnerable to who you are with no preset limits or expectations. Accept and love yourself for the fact that you exist rather for what you do. Give yourself the respect and latitude to be yourself rather than to be what others want or expect you to be. Set the stage for yourself to feel warmth, caring, and concern for yourself, which results in your growing in self-esteem and self-worth. Now, next question is that how do you feel when you receive unconditional love, unconditional acceptance, and self-love? When you, first one says you feel you're free to be yourself. How many of us, do you know, people do wear masks, right? Not masks because of the holidays, but sometimes we wear masks. Okay, I'm gonna ask you a real serious question here. How many of y'all have somebody have asked you how are you doing? Typically, what do you usually say? Doing fine. Okay. Yes, sir. No, but say if somebody really asks you how you feel. Hey, I'm gonna tell you, my feet hurt, I'm tired, I'm sweating, I'm broke, I'm tired, whatever the case may be. My wife gave me an old boy, my kids, they get on my last nerves. If somebody else say one more thing to me is on. Well, typically what do we do? We're fine.
I'm okay. It's actually more than one mask because you have different masks for different relationships. So the Japanese say you have a mask for the public, you have a mask for your family, and then you have a mask that you wear for yourself, and then really the truth is underneath that. And even sometimes we wear a mask with ourselves because we think we portray ourselves a certain way, but we're really not that way, but we're wanting to portray yourself a certain way. So we even wear a mask when it comes to ourselves. So there's actually, it's not even just I'm masking or I'm not masking, it's I'm actually wearing 4 or 5 masks. And if I get around some of my friends from back in the day, I'm not going to act different than if I get around my friends today, than if I get around my people in my neighborhood versus the people from church. I might be wearing 20 or 30 masks.
Good point. Well, sometimes you that, and then you have to mask it with your family. And sometimes you would say when you're in front of your family, you wouldn't say in front of your church family. So, good point. Good point. You want to have value and worth. That's big. Have value and worth. In our society, a lot of times we confuse what you can do for me as value. And why do I need you? Yes, sir.
It's called a transactional relationship.
Right.
In most relationships, because I don't go to the bank to talk to people, I go to the bank because they got my money and I need to. So if we're not careful, all our relationships become transactional. Like you have some transactional relationships I'm not here to be a friend. I'm here because my car needs to get washed. But if we're not careful, every person we come across becomes, what can you do for me?
Exactly. That's what we have to be careful of. Also, to the next one here, wanted and desired for you as you are, rather than what you do. Listen and be understood. Now, people get, how many times we get confused? So many times saying that, I hear what you're saying, I hear you, I'm listening. It's totally two. These are totally two different things when you're saying, I'm hearing what you're saying, and then I'm listening. Trust me, we do that a whole lot of times, especially if your significant other says, yeah, I heard you. They're like, oh, stop, so she won't ask me no. Okay? Trust me, I heard you. Like, no, but if you really heard and you was listening, you would try to be able to understand his or her feelings, and then say, hey, what can I do to make them smile? Or what can I do to ease their tension? So that's what to be listened and understood.
And along with that, there are often, if not perhaps most times, when we listen to what is being said, there are often that by listening will determine what my response should be, rather than predetermined, which may not correspond with what the questions are.
I always learn there's no standardized understanding.
Okay? That we have yourself to offer others, which in itself is worthwhile. I'm offering myself to you. Okay? Warm, cared for, and nurtured. You are okay just the way you are. There is no need to wear a mask or act in any way just to please others. Free to be yourself and open up your feelings with no fear of rejection or non-approval. That is possible to take the risk to be vulnerable in order to have open and honest relationships with each other. No fear of retribution or reprisal from others if you should make a mistake or experience a failure. That there are no conditions on the setup of your relationship with yourself. Because sometimes we put our own barriers on ourselves mentally. A lot of times because we feel that, okay, this person expects me to be this in the job. My relationship expects this to be here. And we put all these little nuances and layers in all of this, and then we kind of get lost in translation. We forget who we are. Because I'm too busy trying to satisfy this. I'm trying to do this, and because of this, we forget who we are.
Martha said this morning, just be yourself.
Yeah, that's it. You know, that's the key thing. And also, you got to be happy in your own skin.
Right.
See, we'll be getting that a little later here, but most people say they are, but are you really truly happy in your own skin? Now that's when the road needs to roll. What are the negative consequences of lack of unconditional self-love and acceptance? When you don't give yourself the unconditional love, unconditional self-acceptance and self-love, then you feel constrained to act in ways which are inconsistent with your beliefs and feelings. Okay, in other words, it's like Pastor said earlier, well, I don't want to hurt my feelings. But if you've been offended, you need to say to he or she you've been offended. And don't attack the person's character. You address the behavior. That's where most people go wrong. And it happens a whole lot of relationships. Oh, you made me sick. You know how to ask her. And what you're doing, you're attacking a person's character. You're not addressing the issue. That's the issue you need to address. Because if you address the issue, that will make you feel much better. All right? You have the lack of freedom to be yourself. Live your life to please others rather than please yourself. Are not given to freedom to experience the natural consequences of your own actions and decisions. In other words, I don't want nobody to feel a certain way because I just take the brunt of it all the time, and even though because you just take the brunt of it, is it right? If a person did something wrong, shouldn't he or she have some kind of consequences to their behavior? But sometimes what we'll do is that we'll just take it because we don't want the person to feel a certain way. But everyone should have actions and consequences of their own actions and or behaviors. Can become dependent on others to make you feel good about yourself. Oh, what you do? You did a good job doing X, Y, Z today. and then you feel happy because somebody told you you did a good job or something. And you start depending on that. Well, if I want everybody to give this good praise or whatever, I need to make sure I do this because every time they say I do this, everybody likes it. So you get caught in that trap. You become very rule-bound and perfectionist in seeking to do what is right or expected in order to be accepted or loved by others. Are more likely to experience low self-esteem or low self-worth. Feel misunderstood, not approved of, and defensive. I mean, you be on attack mode all the time. Because I don't know what they're gonna say. Because I didn't do it the way they like it. They may say, well, I don't like you because you didn't do it the way I want you to do it. Oh, yeah, that's all another subject. Have poor relationship skills and experience failed relationships. Work harder at meeting conditions and expectations set for you by others than working at becoming self-directed, self-sufficient, and self-reliant. That's a whole lot right there. We really get caught in this a lot. Is it wrong having realistic expectations from people?
It doesn't really have high expectations. As long as they are expectations and not.
The key word you missed was realistic. Yes, sir.
And expectation is mixed between expectation and boundaries. So it's like, I mean, an unrealistic expectation may be that no one will ever hurt me. A realistic expectation would be that if people hurt me, I tell them, and I expect them not to do that intentionally.
Exactly. Good point. So, continuing here, this can make you become withdrawn and isolate yourself so as to avoid future rejection and non-approval. Confuse the need to follow rules and obey direction as the only way to be accepted and loved by others. Believe that you can never fail or make a mistake because you will never be worthy of love or acceptance. You can be very self-critical, self-disapproving, and self-punitive. In other words, you beat yourself up. If you made one little thing that goes wrong, you just because I made that mistake. Nobody's not going to do it. Nobody's going to talk to me. I don't want to deal with it. Tend to set unrealistic, non-achievable, and overly idealistic expectations for yourself, which must first be met in order to accept and love yourself. In other words, you try to please everybody all the time, 24/7, 365, and then everyone falls short. And because of that, that pulls down the self-esteem. Become your own worst critic, who is never able to say you are good enough. Now, here are a couple of scenarios that people say that comes into that. Those folks, if you remember, we used to have, those folks I used to work with people with alcohol and drugs, and one of the things they used to say that you did something irrational, we used to call it stinking thinking. That why would you think that way? And because of that, because of the thoughts. And one of the things you got to remember, and this is so true, that your thoughts and behaviors are synonymous. In other words, if you're thinking a certain way, you're going to behave a certain way. And the reason why you're behaving a certain way is because you're thinking a certain way. So there are synonymous, they go together. Here's the irrational thought. You should always obey rules, accept limits, and meet your own expectations and conditions before you can accept and love yourself. Now, here's the healthy way you need to look at this. Following the rules, accepting limits, and meeting expectations and conditions are often necessary for survival in this world, but are not necessary conditions to be self-accepted and self-love. Because in other words, as Jeanette says, hey, you want to help me you want to help me make some money or get some money? And I said, yeah, sure, what you got? She said, hey, you know what? I'm going to rob Panama citizens. Okay? So, do I follow am I going to follow her because she says she's going to Panama citizens and rob the bank?
My son is big.
Okay, but that's my point, and I'm saying that I'm not going to do anything that's irrational. It doesn't make any sense. That, you know what? Hey, you just don't like me on that case. And if I see you on the news I'll be like, hey.
At least I'm finished.
Oh, I'm out of it. Yes,
Those
ma'am.
look shots.
And I would add to that what my mama taught me. Don't do nothing that would displease God.
That's Mr. Word. That's true. That's right. Now, here's the next one here. The irrational thought. It was right that my parents required me to obey their rules, accept limits, and meet their expectations and conditions before they showed acceptance and love for me. I'm not just scratching on some things here. Okay? Now, here's the healthy thing. My parents needed to accept and love me because I existed. Only once I felt this acceptance and love would I more likely obey the rules, accept limits, and met their expectations in a healthy way. So, if you don't show love, it'll make it easier to follow the rules. So, if you think about this, really think about it in this really elementary state. Isn't God kind of like the same way? He lays everything out for us. He just asks us to follow rules. And then you follow rules, will your life become a whole lot easier?
Absolutely.
I don't know, maybe just me. I don't know. I'm just wondering. Okay. Now here's the other rational thought. The goal of my life is to scope out the rules of the game in the workplace, school, family, community, and relationships, so as to gain acceptance and love by playing the game by the rules. Now, here's a healthy thinking with this. It is politically healthy to scope out the rules of the game so as to survive in the workplace, school, family, community, and relationships, but such survival does not always guarantee acceptance and love. Home, workplace, school, family, and community and relationships can be too sick or toxic to offer acceptance or love, even after all the rules of the game have been followed. In such cases, you need to look outside of these environments and to yourself for the unconditional acceptance and self-love you need to feel healthy, fulfilled, and fully human. So, yes, it's okay to understand whatever you need to do as it relates to the job and whatever, but if it gets out of the sense of morality, or it makes you feel uncomfortable, think about it. I think, all right, let me give you a simple example. How many of us have worked and you work at a job, and the job had pens? Have pens, like writing pens?
Oh, yeah.
And you have to take one of those pens home. Everybody looking like, huh? Is that the wrong thing? I took that pen home? But I use it every day at work. I'm going to bring it back to work when I come back to work tomorrow.
Not yours.
Okay? I mean, I need it, but, so, is that a bad thing?
I don't consider it bad, but you don't bring it back tomorrow, but make sure you don't take it the next day. That's the way I do it.
Okay. All right. Anybody else want to chime on that? Because we don't realize that sometimes these little nuances we don't really pick up on that we really do. You don't even realize that you really do.
Yeah, it was, I can't remember what job I was applying for. And that was one of, like, how they have
This questions they answer.
questions and stuff. And that was one of the questions that we had, like, if we had a pen and we take it home. And it's because it is part of STEM, like pen, paper, highlighters.
Paper clips.
That's part of their budget.
It is.
But I would say, like, if you work for a bank, First Citizens, right? First Citizens, they have the logo pins. Those logo pins are a basic part. And so, depending on where you work.
Okay. I can see that. I'll buy that. Yes, sir.
That constantly comes before me that thought. Every time I go to the bank, in the device there has the pin in there for you to write. Now, I like the same type of the course writer, not the fine writer.
Right.
In their times, I might have one fine writer. It's more obvious. He's smoother writing me, of course. And every time I use the pen to sign or to write, the thought comes to me, this is not mine, to replace it. And every time it comes to me. So then I think in terms of what Christ says, one jot or one tittle shall not pass. So if it's not mine, it doesn't belong to me. And that's my path that I strive to follow. Regardless of how insignificant it might be, that's appropriate. That's not that.
All right, here's the next one here. Irrational. It was impossible for my parents to discipline me and still accept and love me unconditionally. Here's the healthy response. It is possible to not like your behavior and actions and develop logical consequences for disciplinary actions, which you must abide by and still love and accept you unconditionally, as seen in the statement. I accept and love you unconditionally. It's your behavior which I don't like right now, and it is because I love you that I am making you experience the negative consequences of your actions. So, as parents, that's one of the toughest things you do. You know, you have tough love or whatever the case may be. But as we said earlier, you love your existence. Okay, go ahead.
All right. Back to the question you asked earlier about remember what you said? About taking things from her? What if you're given some things to use for the year, right? Like for example, you're teaching and you're given a certain amount of supplies to use for the year.
Okay.
This is for you, for your class. And you complete the year and you're going to use everything. But you were given it at the beginning of the year. And then you say, all right, what can I use? I'm going to take home. Is that right?
Well, why you can't say it for the next year? Why you can't say it for the next year?
But what if I say it for next year and then I end up having work the other year to and I decide, okay,
Yeah, because if you didn't use it, you can turn it back in, or you can say, you know what, I can say this for next year, and then when they ask me something else, I may only need a little bit less.
But I don't want to turn it back
Or you may, you know how schools are, they can change the whole spectrum of what they cover, and you may not even need that anymore. You say, no, I don't need this, and then you have this back. So,
Just use the supplies. Stop being scared.
well, this is, you know what, let me give you a more realistic aspect. This happened. Anybody who ever worked for state government, this is one of the worst things they do. All right, enroll from July 1 to June 30. Every this time of the year, they would come and say, "Hey, we got X amount of dollars.
Spend it.
I don't care what it is. If it's a balloon, get it." And they be like, "Huh?" And we're like, "What's the logic?" The logic is that so we can get the same money back or more next July 1.
Yes, if you know you take it, lose it.
Well, that's the rationale. That's if I don't do that, I lose all.
But
So
you say you use the principles that you kind of were talking about, mom and dad, they were godly people. You still use those principles, and as you said, you have more in there that for the next year than you would before if you don't take it home. Because if you take it home, what are you doing with it? What are you doing with it? Somebody else
Then
is
bring it to church. Somebody else is need.
Yes, sir.
That's common in the educational system.
Yeah.
They, even if they don't need all the funds that are appropriated by the government,
They want to use.
they will utilize it anyhow, or at least conceal it inside in order to get a larger appropriation in school.
That's bureaucracy 101 and your taxes on that. Yes, sir.
It's going back to, so the whole time the presentation, I used to think and like self-reflecting. And I shared before that I suffer from depression. And just looking at my life, one of the things that I speak with my therapist about is looking at my life. Even those time periods where I didn't have a plan or action, so once I hurt myself, the way I was living my life, right, was actually hurting myself, right, trying to kill myself indirectly. And so certain things like our behaviors and you're cheating someone else, meaning that in your life you're actually cheating yourself. There are certain things that you're taking away from yourself that you're not being responsible to yourself about. And so there's aspects, if we're having issues about whether or not I should do this or drawing the line and frequent compromises and being everything that we do, it's a self-reflection on the type of love that we have for ourselves, on the type of self-acceptance that we have for ourselves.
Excellent. Excellent. So that's all I'm doing is getting you to get the wheels turning. Okay? So for you, you definitely see the wheels turning. So we're going to cover a little bit more here. Here's another irrational thought. You must be perfect in everything you do, or others will not accept or love you. Here's a healthy approach to look at it. You are a human being subject to faults, failings, and mistakes, and yet you deserve to be accepted and loved, not because you are perfect, but because you are who you are. Just because you are who you are. That's what we look at. Now, here's another irrational thought. It was good for me as a child to experience all the negative conditions of life in my relationships in order to grow up realistic about myself and the world. No, a lot of people think this way. Unfortunately, sometimes your parents. I had to learn that I can't raise my children the way I was raised. Because trust me, the way I was raised, it would be considered child abuse. Okay? I mean, seriously, it was whatever my parents could get hold to. It was an extension cord, the back of the iron, my dad was...
Half a tree?
Yeah, seriously, my dad was notorious. He would hand you the meat cleaver and say, go cut your switch down. And you better bring back something thicker though. Because if not, he's going to make you come back and get it again. And then he's going to beat you with the other one and the one you just got. Okay? But I thank God kept me out of jail. Those things are important. But the healthy thing to really look at is that, the words of this poem by unknown author says clearly that it's healthier for you as a child to have experienced unconditional positive self-acceptance and love if you want to grow into a healthy, self-loving person. Those things that you experience in life actually make you who you are. Whether you realize it or not. You just don't see it at the time. But as you got older, you saw, you know what? Wow. Trust me, I can go back and tell you the friends that I grew up with, that I just grew up. They're coming off 15, 20-year prison sentences. They're trying to readjust back to society because they've been incarcerated, or they want to just get all sorts of things from the world, But these things you have to realize that they do make who you are, but you want to formulate it where it actually creates a sense of where your sense of morality really kicks in. And for most people, those things you go back and laugh and talk about, but it creates a sense of morality who you are, whether you realize it or not. Yes, ma'am.
I don't know if God gives you wisdom or is wrong with you when you were young and all, but there are things that I learned when I was young. It's like, you get a whipping every day, you get a whipping every day. I don't like the whipping. So I learned to do what you say. Do, and I don't get a whipping. I was one of those who didn't get a whipping very often because I saw, the others around me, but it's like, I don't know if that's wisdom, I don't know what it is, but you learn those kinds of things and you learn to live with that, you learn to do right.
Is that pain?
Yes, sir.
So in that, right? Before having children, I was, we would never beat our kids, right? And when I had kids, they still don't know what to eat. But I used to get pops right in the back of the ear. You probably saw me a ear a couple times. And it wasn't until one day we was at the dining room table, and I just reached over to just touch him, just like give a loving touch, and he jumped, right, and it helped me to understand something that I grew up in the mentality because I was a minister, and I grew up in the mentality that the beatings helped me to not be as bad as I could. I was bad. I could have been worse. But it's not true. The beatings, the physical, the spankings, all of that helped me to grow into not loving myself, to not appreciating who I was as a person, to looking at myself as someone that always had to get everything right, just being very critical and so it changed like who I was. It caused me to not have good relationships, right? It caused me to not have a good understanding of who I am, my identity as a person, as a man, right? And so looking at how we treat our children, right? How we treat our children helps them to grow into loving themselves, which is why I give them the nicknames that we have, right? Pretty girl, right? That is who you are. I don't care what the world, they will call you whatever. You understand your daddy looks at you this way. And so I think it's, I think that's another can of worms about this thing.
But here's the issue. Think of it this way. He associated you with the spankings. And then when you try to give him love, he didn't understand that because all he saw was that. So that's why when you have to give discipline, you find an object. You use like a belt or use a paddle. So they associate the paddle and the administration of that paddle versus you doing it yourself. So like when you was thumping him, and that's why when he touched him, he jumped. Because he realized that, okay, I must have been doing something wrong. And then because of that, he associates you with the pain. So you don't want him to associate you with the pain. You want the object like the paddle or the belt to realize I have to administer this pain. But because I'm doing this because I love you. And then he or she will realize the love that you've given to them because you didn't put your hands on it. So that's why he jumped. Because like you said, he was thumping, he was like, okay, I'm doing something wrong. So he associated like, if I just do a gentle touch, he was like, oh man, I'm doing something wrong. Does that kind of make sense?
No, it goes back to, I think that goes back to my point. So that was a couple of years ago. And since that, I stopped. Like neither one of us got talked to me about 2 years. And since then, I haven't had to. Like my sternness, they know, they have differences of more than they do.
Right.
And they, but like, so my point is that when our thinking of the physical pain, right, that's just taming. That's not really helping, right? That's taming. And there's a difference in taming and rearing. There's a difference in trying to control, because when you're around me, you're going to be this way. But I love it, how Gabriel is, right? Gabriel, when he goes to his martial arts class, he might act a certain way in the house. But when he's around other people, he act like he got sense. You know what I mean? But it's a fact that he has the teachings inside, that it's not because of the pain, it's not because of daddy's going to get me. He just understands this is how it should be. And I think it's just the way we teach our children, and even each other.
Right. You just explained a valuable lesson to understand the difference between discipline and training and teaching. You just explained it. That's what you just did.
And when I talk to Gabriel, that's why I always tell both of them, no, this conversation is between me and Gabriel. I'll accept whatever Gabriel tells me his boundaries are, that's what I'm gonna accept. I'll say hug, Gabriel say nope. I say fist bump, he's right on it. Those are his boundaries. And sometimes we don't accept other people's boundaries. We have to do that. It's our boundaries.
Yes, sir.
I can identify with that, and traditionally, it was a custom that other parents were given the authorization to punish, say, neighbors' children physically, and that is a method of teaching. But if we are teaching rather than first parents to strive to consider the guiding principles, and with the meaning, of course, there are times, and have been still are times, when individuals are acting out their instability, they apply it to their children by punishing rather than discipline. As you mentioned, discipline, there's a clear distinction between the two. It's correcting and teaching them, even if the rod is applied, that's a lesson of teaching them that this corporal punishment will do the correction, but it will not. It is teaching them to replicate the same pattern on their offspring with others, just openly, rather than teaching them how the corrective method.
Yes, ma'am, Ms. Pat. And that's a medical condition. Okay? People have this thing about, we use, like, this month is National Mental Health Month, okay? And we have got to the point that sometimes we use the word fairly loosely, but there are things, there are medical conditions where, like we deal with depression or other things, those things of nature, even major mental illness like schizophrenia or bipolar, there are chemical imbalances. Okay, so those things, they do occur, and you need medicine to be able to stabilize it. Yes, sir.
I was going to say, I think we just need to add more vocabulary, because there's a difference between circumstantial unhappiness, and it just means that you need to change the circumstances of your life. You need to drink more water, get out more, get out of the house, and we can say it's depression. And someone who's depressed is not upset. Someone who said, "Oh, I'm so sad. I haven't been outside for a week, and now I'm depressed." Like,
Not depression.
no. So it's up to us to start learning vocabulary. Say, "Hey, I'm feeling sad. I'm feeling a little down." But save depression for the clinical, for the real deal stuff, and save some of those terms. Learn to say things like, I'm upset, or I'm fighting, or something that I'm sad, I'm low, I'm upset. But there's a difference between depression and upset.
Exactly. So look what you say. Look, those there are no conditions. So how do you begin to unconditionally accept and love yourself? In order to do this, you gotta identify your force. Identify you force yourself to meet before you accepting and loving of yourself. Sometimes we put unnecessary pressures on our own selves. So we can go back and say, okay, is this my real issue, or this is somebody else's issue I'm taking up? Because especially in relationships with family and children, we'll take up somebody else's issues.
Codependency.
Yes. And compartmentalize them and everything, and say, you know what? I'm going to fix you. And then we want to get the short end of the stick because you're trying to fix this person. If you know a person that may have the challenges that they're dealing with, and they're not willing to try to fix the challenges, encourage him or her to find the professional help he or she needs to help them with their challenges. Be the empowerment to say, hey, you may have to have a conversation that's beyond me. And that's okay. And sometimes we have to do that. Second point here, analyze these conditions and expectations you set for yourself in order to identify why they block you from being unconditional. What are the things stopping you? Is that I'm still holding on to things in the past? Or am I holding on to something a person said to me 20 years ago? that really wasn't true, but I'm still holding on to it? Is what he or she should be or she said to me, was that really real? Was that really a part of me? Did I take that in? Did I internalize it? Those things. Recognize that the limits and rules of appropriate behaviors which you expect yourself to conform conform to are rules for survival, decency, getting along, coping, productivity, sense, and order, but are not the determinants of freely accepting and loving yourself. Yeah, we gotta survive, ladies and gentlemen, this world. We do. But that don't mean that has to stop you from being who you are. You know, if you like adult coloring books, that's your thing. That is your thing. Okay? If you like whatever you like that makes you happy, enjoy that, embrace that. As long as it's not moralistic and all that stuff. But if it's something that, hey, that is really just takes me, it really relaxes me, really just helps me to zone in and fine. I use myself as an example. Believe it or not, I enjoy, it sounds kind of weird, but I like making PowerPoints. You realize it's not. I enjoy it. I like making pictures and put them together because I may have sometimes I have a thought and I have a thought and then I said, well, how can I make this realistic or make it where it's biblical or whatever? And I'll sit there and I'll go through the Bible and I'll sit down and I'll go through and I'll put scriptures together and I'll get concordance and I will create a whole PowerPoint presentation about something that came on my mind.
So you said you like making what?
PowerPoints.
Oh, okay, gotcha.
Yeah. I will create something that, that I experienced something in the grocery store or whatever. I will sit down and then create a lesson about it. Something that I learned that it was something that I felt was biblical in nature. And I said, I want to research it out. And I sit down and I do a little bit, stop, do something else, and I come back to it, and then I will complete it. And I just save it. So just in case I'm in a situation or whatever the case may be, if I have a chance, the opportunity to present it, I'll present it. But that's my thing. Yes, ma'am.
I get it from you. Okay.
Oh, okay, right.
Look, now you know where you got it from, right?
I enjoy Bible questions on the
Trivia.
phone,
Yeah.
Bible trivia, and I get so many points that my phone almost knocked me out. It just sort of cut me off. It's like, but I enjoy those. But it's a learning process still. It's still learning. You're learning. When you do those PowerPoints and get that material together, you have learned more than you would have ordinarily.
And we'll benefit eventually.
And we'll benefit from it, yes.
Right. And I still want to say, analyze if these conditions are reasonable, rational, or realistic, and develop healthy alternative scripts which free yourself up from being to be more unconditional to yourself. In other words, you can rationalize, you can tell yourself.
She's in pain.
We can tell ourselves some things. And we'll fall right into the trap of it. And a lot of things that we do cause is the direct result that goes on in our head. And some things we need to learn how to tell ourselves, stop. Seriously, y'all can get this. No, seriously, sometimes if you find yourself there's something that comes out that's weird, tell yourself stop. Why, whatever, and do something else constructive. Because that's sometimes the adversary will have that sense to do that to you, just to see where you're gonna see how you're gonna respond to it. You can't read your mind, but you see your behavior and you display something. Trick, try it. And that's what it is.
Yeah, indeed.
Where, sir?
I found that when we can stay dominant brain lead can be very fruitful because this goes back to what God created us. We ascertain or determine what our dominant brain lead is. It can help us to understand others as well, why other individuals does things as they do. For instance, let's say if a person is a right-wing has a brain lead is right brain. That person is more creative visualization and capable of that from the front brain lead. Then the left brain lead, not any better than the other, but that person, we understand oftentimes we understand that aspect of creation, which stems back to how God created a person. It helps to eliminate either criticism, negative criticism, and so on and on. We understand how people, for instance, just another for instance, in that a person who is a right brain lead, predominant lead, who can often be conflicting to a person as a left brain lead, because the left brain lead is based on reality, based on that which is visual, whereas the right brain leads a person can see things even before origination of it, before it comes to pass, because that's the visualization.
Now, continue here. Let's look at the next one here. Identify the necessary standards and limits of conduct for interaction in your home, family, school, workplace, community activities, and relationships. Standards are politically sound to abide by, but not a legitimate basis for your unconditional acceptance and love of self. Now, what's the key word when we say standards? What's the key word in it? What do you stand for? Okay? So that's the key thing. So is it bad to have standards?
No.
I'm glad that you have standards, right? But can we be unrealistic in our standards?
Not as long as it's your standard. If it's yours,
Okay.
you may not ever get it met, but you just have a high standard.
Okay, so give me an example of an example they say you might be your standard, but it could be unrealistic.
Oh yeah, it can be unrealistic. I want to marry a millionaire, but how likely is that? I can still want it. All right.
So when you're talking about self-love, you can't set somebody else until you love yourself.
True.
You cannot accept somebody else until you love yourself. You gotta like you first.
I hear you. I agree with you.
But it's interesting that you say that because what you said earlier about how people accept other people,
Mm-hmm.
they don't.
That's what I said.
Right?
If we accepted each other's boundaries, we would do better. We would do better ourselves.
And I'll take you back to how. I already know something together.
Oh yeah. Tell that story, please, right?
Wait a minute. Tell us is this a relative?
No, this is a good friend of mine for over 20 years.
Oh, okay. All right.
30 years, right? 30.
Tell us your name real quick.
Golfing.
Thank you.
But what I was saying was being able to accept individuals who individuals are, that you're not alike. Okay? And you have to first be okay with yourself. And then the other person has to be okay with accepting who you are and who they are. Because you may not like all the same things, right? But you might do things together, but it may not be that thing that the other will like. You know what I'm saying? And then two, there may be personality differences, right? And those personality differences, you have to be okay with that as well. I would always tell people that the people that I went to college with and I was friends with in college are my friends to this day. And the reason for that is because we all allowed each other to be individuals, to be who we were. Whereas in high school and middle school and all of that, what happened? You know, they wanted to be like them, they wanted to be in the place with them. I'm never fitting for this.
Me either.
I was always by myself. But I understood something that my mother said when I was growing up. She always said, you don't have to be with other people to be accepted. See what I'm saying? And it was always about accepting yourself first. And it's for others. And we're all individuals, but we have that same value or that grounding, right? So, like you said before, all of that plays a role. But then you also have to be okay with each other. You know, it was interesting that when we talk about the building, you know, trying to get to heaven, and we say, oh, no, we're gonna change this, but they don't all feel like they all sound like they can't do this together. But the truth of the matter is, we still do things together, but we are different. And it's okay to be different. It's just have to accept our needs. The thing that we like versus the thing that someone else likes, or the thing they don't like. It's okay. You know, if you can do that, then it's a lot easier for us to be okay within ourselves. And you will be okay when you're by yourself.
I love my own
And
company.
you'll find those things that you do that other people don't do, right? And they others never know about you. But see, that's that man saying, hey, I like to put together PowerPoint. Well, you might say, PowerPoint, what do you mean? Well, I might say, I like poems and stuff that make you think. Okay, you might tell me, girl, that's crazy. Why are you doing all that stuff? I just want to relax, but believe it or not, that's what relaxes. So, you know, it's just different things that people have, and it's okay that they have to just accept of that. And first of all, love you the thing where you are.
Just going back to your question about standards, right? I was the other day I saw an interview that Michael Jordan had, and it was asking him his thoughts on becoming a head coach. And Jordan said that I could not do that because it would be unfair for me or unfair to the young players to expect them to play and have a mindset like that. And so Michael Jordan, he has one of the highest standards ever, right? But he understands that he can't put his standards on someone else. So it's good to have very high standards, but it's also who are you trying to implement the standards on, right? You know, like right now, my daughter, she's going over there to practice on her pieces, right? She loves to do it with Lauren than I. Because for me, I'm like, oh, let's play that again. You know, do this again. What do you think about this, right? And Lauren just let her play through and get her to feel it and understand. But I'm like, hey.
Get it perfect, get it good, get it.
You got to recite it in 2 weeks, come on.
Nature versus nurture.
and so it's like, it's just how.
Right and left brain.
How we living our lives, right? And making sure that the standards that we have aren't being forced on other people. So it's good to have them, but are we forcing them?
How can you force your stand? Because that's one of my problems. I really have high standards for me. But everybody says, Sister Jeanette, nobody has to do all of that. I'm like, you don't, but I do. Those are my standards. They're not your standards. I'm not forcing them on you, but when people watch you and they're like, it just don't take all of that. It does for me. So you either accept me or you don't. It is not my concern. This is who I'm going to be. I have high standards.
And you know, what you're saying is right, but this is where the love comes in. That you're not to change your standards, right? And but the other person has to be okay with the fact that they're not. And a lot of times what happens is they want to be like them. So when Michael said what he said about him playing, and the saying that he has. But when you have a player that comes behind you, okay, there's something that they can work toward. But what you have to remind that person is, do this at your pace. Be the best at what you can be for yourself, right? And it's good for the person who has those standards to be paying attention to the individual that they're working with. And the reason why is because that person will put undue stress on themselves trying to measure up to something because they don't have the self-love that they need for themselves. And then what happens is that's where the disconnect is. So it really doesn't have anything to do with your standards as much as it does to what the other individual is, right? And it's unfortunate, but that's what happens. So then when you see that, you have to go back and you have to make sure that you are aware. Okay, sometimes you're not aware until something happens. But if you're aware, then you kind of say something to them about that, hey, you know, you're good where you are, and it's not the best.
You're the best. You're the only you that there can ever be. That when you were born, the mold was broken.
That's right.
Don't try to be Jeanette.
That's right.
Do you, boo?
Absolutely. That's it.
Which goes into the next goal here, practice eliminating any conditions as you face yourself and attempt to accept and love yourself freely, generously, and with no limitations.
And that's,
Yes, ma'am.
that's where it starts when you're small. It goes back to when I was growing up. I got to look and saw the standards, you know, that the parents wanted, and they were loving parents. You know, you didn't get no whipping if you wouldn't Obedient, that's the word. Oh, I learned to be obedient. I don't get whippings. So, you know, and because I love myself, I don't like whippings. I love myself that much. And you learn that when you are young people, you know what I mean? You learn that when you are young, and it'll carry you through your life.
Yeah, like I said, and also too, the other factors in way into which are generational things as well, but the concept never changes. Okay, so it's the, like Dan pointed out, excellent things.
That's excellent.
Training, teaching, and all that can come.
But that's old school. Yeah, old school is different.
Yeah, that's about yes, ma'am.
For some people, I think they have to be taught how to love themselves. Because sometimes you grow up, when you're growing up, being compared to others, and always being told, why can't you be like this person? This person is such a nice person. This person. And then you start to look at yourself, you don't like yourself, and you grow with that. Even into adulthood. So even as adults, some adults have to learn, they have to be taught to love themselves.
You bring up an excellent point because that happens a lot. And when you get into the raising the children and things like this, you do comparison, contrast, and why you can't be like your brother, why you can't whatever the case may be. And then sometimes parents forget, children are people. They're gonna be who they're gonna be, but then you mold them to the way that they are who they are, but it's not to the point where they're just being outlandish and whatever the case may be. You reel them in and you keep them where they understand the moral good ideals.
I believe so.
And you don't just let them go willy-nilly. You know, you got to condition it where they understand the importance of that you still love them regardless, whether they're right, wrong, and different. But you got to let them know what they need to know for themselves, and as they become older, they start making those decisions. And the Bible is even clear that you can train a child to go far. No, they might get grown and do their own thing, but eventually they realize the world ain't nothing offer for them. They come back. Because they feel out of mind. But you got to be able to turn the jobs. And that's hard sometimes, especially when they got so many things that distract them. You got social media, you got this, you got all these challenges that versus you didn't have those challenges that we had. You know, or I didn't have the challenges that kids have challenges today. And man, if I had challenges to deal with when I was in high school or going to high school today, whoo! I don't know if I would have made it, honestly, because it's a whole different aspect. But the next point here is to identify what fears, beliefs, and behaviors keep blocking you from being unconditional in your love and acceptance of self, and replace them with healthy alternatives. Be free to verbalize an open and unconditionally acceptance of self, so as to develop a new set of behavioral scripts which become more habitual for you. Emphasize with yourself that it's because you love and accept yourself so entirely free that you want yourself to experience the positive and negative consequences of your actions, and the fact that such consequences do not affect your acceptance or love for yourself. Clarify that tough love is continuous unconditional acceptance and love of self, but it holds you to be fully personally responsible for your actions, your own actions, and the consequences of those actions. So, yeah, are we going to make mistakes in life? Best believe it. Okay? But we want to learn. Yes, believe it. We're going to do that. And that's okay. And sometimes, even when you have your own children, and you see that, he or she will do that, and you're like, okay, sit back, and a lot of times they can figure it out. It may take a while, but they can figure it out. Now, what are the, closing out here, what are the steps that you need to do to increase in unconditional acceptance, self-acceptance, and self-love? Step one, I need for you to answer these questions to yourself. How well do you unconditionally accept yourself? How well do you unconditionally love yourself? Now, you can, here's the thing, I'm about to really explain some things to you. Do you know that if you really can't love yourself, you can accept yourself? You know that? If you really realize that there's some things about you that you really don't like, and you really keep saying, I'm gonna get better at it, I'm gonna get better at it, I'm gonna get better at it. Like, I tell my daughter all the time, because she and I always joke all the time. And I keep saying, I'm not gonna let her. And whatever that is, I'm like, I'm just thing open, I just go close the door. But she's like, I can do that. And I was like, what? She'll tell you now I'm getting much better at it, right? I'm getting much better at it. But I'm still got
You're getting better at it.
you saw the air quotes, right? Right. Wow. Wow.
I don't want to go here.
Okay. Hey, I'm free. I'm like, I'm an open book. I can take it. Okay. So what?
You can't lie.
Right. Well, the thing is that you can't really truly love yourself if you don't accept yourself. Your shortcomings, your imperfections, or whatever the case may be, if you can't really accept that, you're gonna have a hard time loving yourself.
And loving others.
Yeah, and or other people, and or in relationships, because you're gonna expect he or she to be just like you. And then when you find out, guess what? They're not like you. I don't have time for them. And you keep moving. Now realizing that you might have been an issue. Okay? So I want you to look at it like that. Next thing, what are the conditions placed on yourself before you accept and love yourself? Why are these conditions blocked? Or why are these conditions blocked to your freely accepting and loving yourself? Are these conditions reasonable, rational, or realistic? If not, then develop alternate scripts to free up to accept and love yourself. What are the rules or limits of survival, decency, getting along, coping, productivity, and sense and order which you have been confused as determining conditions preventing you from unconditionally accepting and loving yourself? In other words, what handcuffs, fetters, chains you put on yourself to tell yourself that you can't love yourself? Let those things go.
Because they're not true.
Yeah, and it could be them. But you may have to work on changing behavior. Okay? How well you allow yourself to be you. Again, we talked about earlier these masks. How do you really tell people how you really feel? I don't want to do that. That makes me look bad. Yes, ma'am.
No, it's just a little simple thing. I cannot sit too long. And I have been in the church, it's like, these long programs, and I just got up and went to the back. But others be sitting, if I can't sit too long, and I will sit there and hurt because of the expectations of everybody, I better get up and just stand and be honest.
You got to do what works for you. Yes, sir.
So how do you balance being yourself with, I don't care to be vulnerable with other people.
Okay,
So,
see, you jumped ahead because my next section is going to be how becoming one. But I'm going to answer the question. Here's the thing. Most times people don't realize, I don't want to jump too much for the next session, but the key is to look at what risk that you're taking. Okay? Because most people don't realize even in a relationship, you take a risk. You take a risk to have a relationship with someone. That means that you sit there and they whatever. But the key thing is that if you do that and somebody uses that against you, that's the relationship you need to be in.
Now you know.
Because if they really whatever the case may be, even if you don't get along, hey, that was between us in a relationship and that's where it stays. You didn't get along, fine. Keep moving. Okay? Well, that's a good question, but that's the next topic, but hold on that. How free are you to openly express feelings, admit faults and failings, and to experience excitement and enjoyment in your life? Some people think you're not supposed to have enjoyment in your life. Yeah, you limited yourself. You're supposed to have fun. You have to do certain things. There's nothing wrong with having fun. Within reason. But some people, oh no, I'm not supposed to do that. No.
If you're a Christian, you're not supposed to do that, but that's wrong. I never taught that. Yeah.
The life of the party, he turned the water into wine. He was the life of the party.
Now, step 2. Once you have made a thorough assessment of how well you unconditionally accept and love yourself, then you need to recognize that to increase the unconditional acceptance and love of self opens you up to be vulnerable. As John Wood so clearly points out in his poem, once you read it and you want to answer it, think about this. Fear of taking risks, inability to trust, insecurity, fear of being vulnerable, fear of failure, fear of the need of approval, fear of rejection, inability to identify feelings, inability to forgive yourself, the inability to establish intimacy. Second part of this, how does perfectionism and the need to be exact, right, and correct hinder your ability to be unconditional in your acceptance and love from yourself? Some people, oh yeah, you ever been around anybody who always feel that they always got to be right? Everybody's trying to hit okay, but there are some people that no matter what this, it can be dead wrong. But in their mind, they're right. I heard
Dorothy over here talking about, is she thinking about me?
I have many people that say that when they're right, they're right. And even when they're wrong, they're
You're
right.
Whetstone, you always right.
Yeah, y'all didn't get that one. Let me say that again. I have many people say when they're right. Even when they're wrong, they still say they were right.
Well, I do know a couple.
Well, that's becoming a common trend today. More and more. All talks about that.
Rather believe a lie than the truth.
Yeah. Wrong to be right and right is wrong.
You'd rather believe a lie than the truth.
Without being convinced. And people refuse to be convinced. So
And you can put up to the hero.
I was thinking that you did.
I like to analyze self first. Self-examination. Not just based on my views, but based on precepts, example. Well, I like to try to make sure not so much of being right as I am doing the right thing, making right choices. Rather than before I determine whether I'm right or not, I want a guideline, a principle, a guideline that tells me that the choices I'm making is right.
Look at number 3 here. How would an increase in faith and development of your spirituality with your higher power assist you to become more unconditional in self-acceptance and self-love? That's a question you need to ask yourself. How can God really get to that point? Maybe He might have to remove certain people from us. Maybe He may have to remove certain things in our own walk path. Maybe He might have to remove something in my behavior that I've been habitual with for years. That only God can take away from me. I worked with a patient one time, and the patient told me, y'all don't realize that your will is strong, and your will can take you certain places. And we was talking, she was saying that, she just told me at the group, she was saying that, I just got to the point one day, I just stopped drinking. I was like, how do you just stop that? She was just like, I said to myself that I'm tired of that. It's not getting me nothing. I'm not going nowhere. It's causing more problems for me. And I just stopped. So that tells me if you focus, just the will by itself can take you places. Just focus. So imagine you take that focus and then add God on top of it.
But I don't know.
The Spirit leads.
That's my thought.
You really can get some places. I met people that say, hey, I could stop smoking marijuana. People that they have one in the morning, one ready, the one about to wind up. And they said, hey, I stopped. I don't want it. So your will, if you really exercise your will, what do you please?
No, not even one.
And then again, God,
You're cleaning it there.
so this thing about number 4, what are those things accepting and loving yourself? What would you gain or would you lose? Sometimes we're used to certain things, we don't realize that we really not and they're not good for you. But we still hold on to them. Sometimes sometimes maybe that thing you need to let go, that actually can really make you better and a better person. Number 5, what beliefs and behaviors do you need to develop in order to become able to unconditionally accept and love yourself? Beliefs, again, belief is actually the thought pattern and actually exhibit. A lot of people say they believe, but if you look at the word, it needs to be lived. So it means you live what you believe. So if you know this, whatever the case would be, you live it. And if you live it, trust me, everyone that's around you will see it. All right. How would you practice self-love for yourself, and how would this new approach free you to be more unconditional in your acceptance and self-love yourself? And self-love doesn't mean that, you know what, I'm gonna take away all my cookies. Okay? No more Oreos for me. Okay? It may be something that could be much more intense than we realize. It could be that if you do this, you know, sometimes we as human beings, we have a train of pattern that if you do with the hardest thing first, everything else falls in line like dominoes.
It's true.
Yeah. So sometimes if you just really take the hardest thing first, if you know that's your crutch and your nemesis, and you really go at that hard first, trust me, everything else is.
You said my word, Oreos.
Okay. All right. Number 7. What are the blocks which up to now keep you from allowing yourself to experience the natural consequences of your own actions? Number 8. How did your need to protect yourself from making a mistake or experience of failure prevent you from freely accepting and loving yourself? Number 9. How comfortable are you with yourself to begin to be more unconditional with your acceptance and love? Sometimes, again, it goes back to what Pastor learned about, are you really open up? And that's hard sometimes in relationships, especially before you know that, you know, I gotta be vulnerable. I gotta say some things, or I gotta get people to understand more about me. All right, step 3. Once you have looked at the blocks of being unconditional in your self-acceptance and self-love, then practice these new behaviors with yourself. Take it day by day, moment by moment, week by week, month by month, whatever the case may be, but you've got to take the steps. The last part is that if you are still experiencing difficulty in being unconditional in your self-acceptance and love, you go back to step 1 and start over. Until you get to that point that you're comfortable with who you are. Okay? Now, you have any other questions or comments? Oh, wait, you have a comment?
No, I just want to say when you go practice that. Number 1, you don't expect immediate results. And if you don't get immediate results, you continue to practice.
Correct. So, lastly here, if you got any other questions or comments or any topics that you feel that, hey, you want to discuss as a group, definitely email me and we can put a presentation together that kind of help you to understand things a little bit more. Again, questions, comments, things I didn't answer, and you might have some questions that, you know, that you might not cover that you want to be able to expound on further. I hope this was a blessing for you. If you don't, I appreciate your time. So, if you don't have any other comments or questions, I'm going to Ambassador to close it out prayer. All right.
I'm Brother Redstone.
And just so we know, you know, Andre is presenting often about once a month, and you know, when he needs a little break, we got 2 other speakers that can share a word, and so we're planning to have a mental health topic at least once a month. So plan for the next one to be the last week of June, and we'll meet again. So let's close with prayer. Dear Lord, thank you for the fact that you love us, regardless of what we've done or how we behaved or any of our imperfections. You see that we are your children and you love us unconditionally. Now, Lord, help us to learn to love ourselves that way, so that we in turn can love others that way also. May we stop seeing each other for just what we can offer each other, but when we see each other as someone who deserves to be loved and respected unconditionally. So let us first love you, then love ourselves, and then love others as well. I pray these things in